Alright, we should be live. Let me grab my headset here. Not that there's usually anything audible going on, but... So we're back. We're working on Toph, the first Metalbender. Here she is in case you need a reminder of how she works. And we are currently at 145 spells. And technically we can be at 144 because I can count Mox Opal as a land for this deck specifically. We have 4 artifact lands. We have a bunch of other cheap artifacts that we're running. So as long as we don't cut too many of the cheap artifacts, that will continue to be true. If we do cut too many of them, then Mox Opal has to go back to being a spell. So I guess to be on the safe side, we count as a spell for right now. So we're at 145 spells. We need to get it down to 60. Gives us room for 40 lands. So let's get back to it. We're getting close to having to do the first sublist for the deck. Probably be doing that by the midpoint to end point of this one. I don't know, do we do ramping first? Do we do interaction first? Do we start counting up the sheer number of destroy all non-land permanents or some variant thereof that are still in the deck, so that way I can figure out which ones of them I'm actually running? Because we have like 6 or 7 pseudo-wraths in the deck that are meant to work very well with Toph, and we do not need all of them, so... So if I could ever get rid of the phlegm the second I start streaming, that'd be amazing. Like, perfectly fine. Been here for like 30 minutes after lunch, watching LSV a little bit. And I'm like, okay, I should be good. Like, I haven't had to cough or clear my throat or anything. Set up the stream, go to click start streaming, have a bit of a cough, clear my throat, hit start streaming, full phlegm. Every time. Literally, whenever this happens, when I'm streaming, it is exactly that way. It's never like, oh, I should probably just wait to start streaming. No, I am perfectly fine until I click the button. Okay, this time I had to clear my throat a little bit as I was about to click the button. Same difference. So frustrating. So unbelievably frustrating. Could still be Kiki. Could legitimately be Staff of Domination. We only have one actual full-on infinite mana combo, and that is Aggravated Assault. Which we do not need a payoff for infinite mana. We have a value engine constantly going, so infinite mana doesn't really do much. And the whole... Yes, it's infinite mana, but it's also infinite combat steps, so if anything can get through for damage, we just win the game. So Aggravated Assault doesn't need Staff of Domination to be in the deck. We can cut Aggravated Assault also, since its only real purpose... It has a dual purpose. It can allow me to cast the rest of the spells from my hand if I really want to that turn, because I can generate infinite mana. Or it can win the game by itself if anybody drops their shields for a turn and we can actually get in for damage. It also works if we have like an indestructible land creature, because that can keep attacking into anybody without an indestructible creature of their own, because eventually they can't block it anymore. Like, they will block it, and then it will attack them again, and they'll block it again, and it can keep taking infinite damage, but their creatures can't in this scenario, so eventually they will run out of blockers and start taking damage again and die from that. So, and we do have 5 indestructible artifacts, I believe, on the list. It's the 3 bridges, Darksteel Citadel, and the 1 ring are all on the list, so... We will eventually overwhelm any opponent with that. Yeah, I can see losing the Staff of Domination. It's a cool trick, but it's not super helpful if we don't have the infinite combo going. And we only have the one infinite combo, and we weren't meant to be an infinite combo deck. We're meant to be a value deck anyway. Yeah, part of the reason to run aggravated assault is because we will be able to generate value from it anyway. It also does work even if we're not quite infinite. You know, if we have a handful of lands that tap for mana that are also creatures now, we can generate a large number of combat steps. You know, attack with all my creatures, you know, tap a land and like four creature mana sources, untap all my stuff, attack again. Now I have to tap another land. So basically I can pay 1 mana to get an extra combat step as long as I don't attack with the animated mana sources. So that still works. It does also work with Kiki Jiki. If I'm at mana neutral and I'm untapping him, he's copying things. Yeah, there's a whole lot we can do with aggravated assault that's already fine. We don't need a way to spend infinite mana for Staff of Domination, so we can just get rid of it. Honestly, I also need to double check what things Manascape Refractor works with, because we might be getting rid of that. Because most of the abilities that it can copy, like if I turn my artifacts into lands and it gains all of their activated abilities, a lot of them are actually kind of redundant. Like, the Manascape Refractor is either the same or worse than most of my other things anyway. As far as, you know, if we turned Manascape Refractor into a Jester's Mask and sacrificed it, it'll still come back into play tapped because Manascape Refractor comes back tapped. So it's not dodging anything like that. And sacrificing it instead of the mask isn't a huge deal. So we basically have to want to do it twice in the same turn cycle without a way to untap the other thing, and at that point it feels like I'm really grasping. So Manascape Refractor is on the chopping block right now. I did think of it because the Refractor is another Staff of Domination. If Staff of Domination wanders off or anything, so... Like, as far as copying activated abilities go, you can do a lot more with the... Like, because you can untap Refractor with Staff of Domination's ability once they're both lands, you then have access to other tap activated abilities, but we don't have a ton of those that are actually, like... We could generate infinite mana with Soul Ring at that point, you know, because we're only spending 1 to untap it, so we don't need anything else to generate infinite mana, and then of course it is itself an infinite card draw engine to find the other combo pieces, but I don't know. I don't necessarily need an infinite combo in my deck. It's nice to have one that you can randomly stumble into. I don't like infinite combos when they are either... So, if I want to build an infinite combo deck, I will, and we'll just slot it in as a tier 4 high-end to tier 5, depending on, you know, like CEDH caliber, depending on how ridiculous and easy to assemble the combo is and how resilient the deck is at protecting it. But I like to have an infinite combo in a lot of my other tier 4 decks anyway, because sometimes somebody will go infinite in a way that doesn't win. They'll just put themselves out of reach of dying, and then, you know, it's like, okay, you can either concede or we can keep playing this out, but I literally just gained a Googleplex of life, and and now, and I can technically do it again, too. So, if you don't want to concede, that's on you. And I'll be like, nah, I'm good, I think I can still kill you. because I do have an infinite combo somewhere in my deck that will eventually get there, no matter how many times I have to repeat it. But so I like to have those, but I don't like it when it's so easy to assemble. Like, I think one of the worst infinite combo decks or infinite combos I put into a deck that um like I kind of regret it is I have a Rorikthar deck that is obviously very creature heavy because it's Rorikthar. Um but it runs Tooth and Nail, and one of the biggest problems with Tooth and Nail is that I can't do anything else cool with it because it feels like I am just slow rolling the other like the rest of the table if I don't just get Kiki and Zealous Conscripts. So I don't like when the infinite combo becomes the thing I should be doing instead of the cool and fun things the deck is doing. I like the infinite combo where it's a backup win con when somebody else goes infinite and you need to do something about it. I also don't mind cards that can undo an infinite thing. Like if the opponent gains infinite life and I have like Aesor and Markov or something, like that's also fine. You know, break up their infinite combo and then set them back down to 10. So that way you can actually win the game against them. But I don't like it when it's not the primary focus of the deck, but becomes something that you should do every single time that's relatively easily done. That's one of the things I dislike about Thassa's Oracle, is a lot of the time people will just jam a Thassa's Oracle combo into their deck because they have the colors for it, and then it winds up invalidating the entire rest of the game. But at the same time, I like to have a way to undo somebody else's. Oh, I'm just going to, I'm just going to phase myself out for a billion turns with Teferi's protection, and you guys keep playing. I'll be over here not having a turn for forever. And, and you guys figure it out. But, but yeah, so I don't mind having the aggravated assault infinite combos in the deck, but I like that they're not going to be the focal point of the deck at any point in time. They're just going to be something that randomly happens on occasion. And maybe we set it up when somebody else does something infinite that doesn't end the game. Or even just something arbitrarily powerful, like it's not an infinite combo, but they hit a stop point and they had to stop, and they're like, okay, I've got that thanks to doubling the power of this creature over and over again and gaining life, I now have 1,000 life. Or I have, I don't know. I was about to say the Aetherflux Reservoir, but you just kill everybody if you gain 1,000 life off Aetherflux Reservoir, right? Or is it tap to deal 50 damage? If it taps to deal 50 damage and it doesn't kill everybody, and then you can untap and kill Aetherflux Reservoir, then it's like, okay, so you have, like 9,500 or 9,950 life, and one of the players is dead, but now your thing is gone, so now we just need to hack through 9,000 points of damage. It's nice to have something like that. Anyway, I got onto a bit of a tangent about infinite combos while cutting Staff of Domination. On the bright side, though, I seem to have talked my way through. Not gonna jinx it, though. We're not gonna mention that anymore. Keep Terra Eternal, because then all of my animated lands are indestructible. All of my non-animated lands are also indestructible, but the animated ones being indestructible is a lot more relevant. Because most of them were pretty hard to kill anyway, for the things that we're doing. It could be Conjurer's Closet. It could also be Teleportation Circle. The Nahiri's, whatever her enchantment is from Aftermath, is just, noticeably stronger than either of these two. Like, she can blink out so many different artifacts by using the enchantment, and then they'll just be gone until my next upkeep. Because a lot of them don't need to be in play on the opponent's turns. Like, they don't do anything that's super helpful. Like, what would I need with Mirrorworks, for example, on the opponent's turn? Unless, like, one of my things dies that's metal bent and comes back, and then I could have paid the two, but, my things are going to constantly be dying and coming back. That's one of the things that this deck does very well, so. Surf Crewfix, Ins Nexus. Yeah, honestly, the deck is a lot stronger with the landfall triggers than it is with the actual. Like, I want to run a bunch of artifacts that are really good to have enter and leave, but the deck is actually a lot stronger with um the landfall synergies. Yeah, I think the biggest problem with this deck is that there's no way to return a land to your hand for free. In this color combination, like, there's no way to bounce a land to your hand in order to do something else, like as a cost. And I don't really want to run Storm Cauldron to set this up, but we could theoretically run it because of the like, if we had zero casting cost artifacts, we have Zoran Orb, we have Mox Opal, so we wouldn't need like that much more. Where you can just essentially generate infinite landfall triggers by replaying the artifact land, like the 0-drop artifact, over and over again. But yeah, there's none that return it as a cost, or that have a setup that would allow me to forcibly return a land to my hand every single time I do a certain thing. So that way we could bounce the same 0-drop over and over again to generate infinite landfall triggers. But the deck does do better. Like, I built this thing on Brawl, and it works a lot better as a landfall deck that takes advantage of the fact that all of its artifacts are lands than it does as a, we are going to focus exclusively on artifacts coming into play and dying. But you still want some amount of that, because if nothing else, you want to be able to cause your lands to leave, or your artifacts to leave and enter while they count as lands repeatedly anyway, to trigger all the landfall stuff again. So I do think I need to. There's going to be like a whole bunch of artifacts that are going to go because of that, because they're cool and they're fun, but they are not helping with the actual game plan. I do like Tomic giving all of my stuff hexproof from my opponents while stopping them from doing cool things with their lands. I'm going to die so hard, though, if somebody steals Tomic and I can't kill him. I do always think about that when I have a card that absolutely wrecks my own deck because of the ways it messes with other players' decks, and it's like, do I want to run the risk of somebody gaining control of this somehow? Like, is what it does for me against you so good that I should run it, even though there's going to be times where somebody else will wind up with it and I will lose because of that? Still might be Ancient Green Warden. Despite everything I said, I have so many things that will double up on the number of triggers. my landfall triggers for artifacts entering anyway, which is the primary way to trigger them. Like, the Ancient Green Warden, if all I'm doing is playing my land for the turn and getting 2 landfall triggers instead of 1 from everything with landfall, that's okay, but it's not what the deck desperately needs. Like, it's the artifacts counting as lands that are going to get me all of the triggers. So. And the artifacts themselves have decent comes into play abilities anyway, so even if they, like, if Toph dies or something, the artifacts will tend to have really strong comes into play abilities anyway, whereas a lot of my lands kind of don't. Like, the lands are not the source of things, it is um the artifacts that have the good ETBs. It is nice that I can play lands from my graveyard when I have fetches, though. I'm going to leave it on the list, but I think once we get towards the end and I'm desperate for cuts, we're going to wind up losing Ancient Green Warden. Could be Teleportation Circle. It could be Haywire Might, honestly. We have. So, the argument for Haywire Might staying is that I can Earthbend onto it and then sacrifice it repeatedly. So it's a good recursive source, at which point in time I should seriously consider losing either Heliod's Intervention or Force of Vigor. Because we don't want to lose Aura Shards. So I think we have one too many artifact and enchantment specific cards. Now, the Haywire Might can't kill artifact creatures or enchantment creatures like the gods if they're online, but it can kill most of the problematic combo pieces and value engine cards. So we do probably want Haywire Might. Also, the fact that it is recursive, whereas Force of Vigor and Heliod's Intervention are both one-shots. It's only recursive, though, if we can Earthbend onto it. If it gets killed before we can Earthbend onto it again, then we don't get to use it repeatedly, and we might not even get to use it at that point if we don't have the green mana available. Mm. I do like it, though, as just a cheap creature that I can have early on to, like, poke things like cheap planeswalkers and whatnot, or get in a couple points of damage, and then becomes a more important card later on. As it starts chewing through all the opponent's things. It can also just kill an early Soul Ring or something. You know, set that one player back so that way everything's nice and even again. Or so that way we stay ahead because we had Soul Ring first and we're not going to abide by them having a Soul Ring also. How dare they? And commander of all games. Yeah, I'm kind of inclined to keep the Haywire Might. I think I might lose Force of Vigor. I do like that it can be free, which is super helpful in combating combo decks, especially. And it doesn't require any onboard setup the way so like we do have other stuff that could theoretically break up a combo with no available mana just by having things on board, but they need to be on board at that point, and if they're not, then I can't do the thing. So, but I do think I like Heliod's Intervention more than Force of Vigor when I can spend the mana, so. Also, we still have to have a green card in our hand, and we do have a lot of colorless cards. Although we are running nearly every earthbending card in the format, so there is that. Yeah, I think there are like three of them we're not running. No, there's four because there's the other enchantment that I'm not running. That is a what you call it, hardened scales also. But I don't have ways to blink that one, and it is a comes into play. And at that point, I think I prefer Earthbender's Ascension because we can multi-trigger the landfall and give our giant things trample. Whereas the other enchantment, like Earthbends immediately, but then it is just a hardened scales after that. So if I'm not putting 1/1 counters on my things with other effects, then it actually does nothing. Whereas the Earthbender Ascension will be the thing that's putting 1/1 counters on stuff and giving them trample. So, and it's also 1 mana less, and it ramps you initially. So there's a whole lot going on for it. Nahiri's Resolve. That's what it's called. I knew it was a Nahiri card and from Aftermath, and I could not remember the name to save my life. I'm gonna keep Nisa, Gandalf, the One Ring, Stroke of Midnight's fine for right now. That's true, we have a handful of catch-all removal spells too, so I can lose one or the other. Maybe it's still Intervention. Like, we have infinite combos, we have... I'm sure, like, I forget the entire Game Changer list, but I'm pretty sure we have a bunch of cards from the Game Changer list on the chopping block here, so I have to believe we're going to be like the high end of tier 4. Just like maybe not in practical application of the deck, maybe it's like a mid to low tier 4 instead. But I don't think we get away from that. I don't think we drop back down to a 3 at any point in time. So maybe we want Force of Vigor more just because we'll be running up against other decks with infinite combos in them, and having a way to break that up while we're tapped out might just be the thing. We probably don't need Splunking. I don't know that we need any of the untap my stuff. Like my lands come into play untapped or untap my lands, like the Amulet or this or the Scare Tiller, if I'm being completely honest. There are things we can do with them if we can do that, but we don't necessarily need to have them come back tapped or untapped. I think the Amulet of Vigor is the strongest one anyway, so if we're going to run one of them, it is nice that this one draws me a card at least, and can ramp me a land in the early game. Probably not in the mid to late game though, where I will have played all of my lands, because I don't have a ton of card draw. So having extra lands in hand is less likely. It's a Moon Smithy I want to keep. Bristly Bill stays. Salvation Engine is good. In Eye of Storms, Racetrack, Gladio, Traveling Chocobo, all good. Tanic's good. Do I need Terra Symbiosis? So most of the time, I'm going to be putting like 1 counter on my creature. Normally, or 2 counters. Actually, it's going to be 2 counters fairly often, so it is a draw 2. Yeah, never mind. If I'm using Toph as the thing to draw that many cards, then I'm going to draw 2 cards a turn with this thing out, and I think that's a bit too good. Also, if I can find ways to put 1/1 counters on my guys on opponents' turns, I can also draw cards there. So, which actually shouldn't be that difficult with some of the cards in my deck. Like, it's not unrealistic for me to, sacrifice a thing that's going to come back and trigger landfall and have that landfall put a counter on something. like Bill, Scythecat, Haru if it's an ally, or some of the other things. If it is itself capable of earthbending when it comes back, although that's a bit difficult since it's hard to turn my stuff into artifacts. But we do have liquid metal torque. I get a little bit more leery about running mycosynth lattice because there's a whole lot of ways that can backfire. Not the least of which is Karn Great Creator. Maker Gunship is fine. I could cut the Warmaker Gunship. It's one of those things that I kind of like the idea of it, because we have so many artifacts in the deck that it will very easily just kill anything on ETB. Like, it can realistically kill any creature that is vulnerable to this thing's ETB. Like, if I'm allowed to target it and deal damage to it with the effect, then I can probably kill just about anything. Like, it can take down dreadnoughts and whatnot. Because I will have the artifact count for it. Or can get the artifact count for it at least. Obviously, slightly better if it counted lands instead of artifacts. But everything that counts the number of lands isn't really a good enough card on its own, unfortunately. Like, there is no, this is a thing that I could keep recurring that counts the number of lands to deal damage. It's usually like a one-shot instant or sorcery. So. Yeah, we probably still want weapon manufacturing. We're having so many non-token artifacts enter that we can't go wrong with this card, because as soon as we get a sacrifice outlet, it's just going to mow down opponents, or at least kill all of their stuff to keep us alive and make them vulnerable. So maybe we don't need Airbender Ascension. We already, I was thinking about cutting Closet or who's he thing, Teleportation Circle, but Airbender's Ascension is actually the slightly worse version of both of them, because I need to have a bunch of creatures enter after it, and so if it shows up late, it might take a little while to get the blink effects going. So we can probably cut that. Alright. Let me fix my posture real quick because I'm sliding all the way down in the chair. Ooh, excuse me. Maybe it's time to check and see how many things Imperial Recruiter actually tutors for. Similar to our other cards, make sure that it actually has enough targets. Ooh, excuse me. Alright, if we're going to do this, we want to get rid of Heliod's intervention, not Force of Vigor. Esper Sentinel stays, Liquid Metal Torque stays, Springheart Nantuko's good. Mutation is fine. There are certain commanders where it just works super well against them, so. Scrap Mastery. We already have Restoration. Maybe we don't need Scrap Mastery also. Yeah, I could see that. We get rid of mastery. Protection, flawless maneuver, deflecting SWAT. I have to real quick go over and make sure we don't have anything else we're doing with Manescape Refractor. But I think having gotten rid of the Staff of Domination, Manescape Refractor actually loses, like, most of its luster. Could be a Lebu. I did wind up cutting a Lebu from Brawl, but I thought he was too slow for Brawl. Um, where you only have 25 life to start with, and you are 100% the focus of the most threatening opponent at the table, seeing as there are only two players. So, between the lower starting life total and the fact that their deck might be more aggressively bent towards killing you anyway, I thought Alibu was too slow. In Commander, though, with the 40 life and other players possibly distracting your opponents from you, there's a lot more reason to want a 4/5, especially one that's going to let me scry, like scry 10 or something. Is basically just, I am starting to tutor for cards at this point. Do you really like the interaction with Eudora? It's the typo real quick. Thinking about it. Resourceful defenses. There is a world where we cut resourceful defenses, but I think it's still fine for right now. I do like Excise the Imperfect, but I could see cutting it. I like its versatility, and the fact that it exiles, but it is problematic if you have to excise something with huge casting cost that got cheated into play. Like, yes, you need to get rid of something like Portal to Phyrexia or something, but if you do that and your opponent now has a 9/9, that might be an issue some amount of the time. There'll be times where it won't be. I'll just have an indestructible land creature and it'll be blocking all day, every day. And I just need to make sure, you stop getting back other things every single turn. Go around it. Instructor is one of the ones I keep wanting to cut, and then I'm like, no, because every time I sacrifice something I've managed to earthbend onto, I'm going to get to draw a card, and that's just a lot of cards drawn. Maybe I don't need Surge Conductor. It's just worse Evolution Sage, but also slightly easier casting cost. Because it's not triggering off of my regular landfall. Um, it is better when Toph's not in play, because none of my artifacts are triggering landfall anymore, but I don't think we need it. Question mark. Either we don't need this one or we actually don't need Evolution Sage. Like, one or the other one should go. Like I said, Evolution Sage is better when Toph's in play. This one is better when Toph's not in play. Huh. Alright, let me think about that one a little bit longer. I say, so we haven't been going for 40 minutes and I've only made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cuts. Oh, is that a comma? That should be a period. Oh, yeah. we've got a whole lot of things going on. So it needs a comma. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Off the list first. Alright, so what are my 2 power creatures? What can I tutor for with Recruiter? Goblin Welders 1, Metal Workers 2, Junk Divers 3. Duplicants 4. Retrievers 5. Ravagers 6. Kiki 7. Elder is technically 8 if I needed more lands. Canonist is 9. Yeah. Lotus Cobra's 10. Ruin Ghost is 11. I don't think I'm going to be able to cut him yet. Courser's 12. Can't get Tireless Tracker. Sage. Comics 13. Shia will not be tutorable. She will be way too big. By the time I can cast this, like, I can tutor for her if I go, like, turn 1 Soul Ring and then untap and cast this guy before I play, like, more than 1 additional land. Scoot Swarm is 14. Oswald's 15. Yeah, I need to cut, like, so many cards. The Lion Sash. Haywire Might. Loran. Yeah, like, almost a third of the deck is creatures that I can tutor for. Bristly Bill. So I would need to cut so many things for this to not be worth it. Alright. Yeah, we did cut all of these. Alright, real quick, what am I getting out of Manascape Refractor? Tap for 2 colorless mana, tap for mana of certain colors, sack it to mess with my opponent's hand. Sacrifice lands to gain life is redundant. Smokestack is all triggered abilities. So is Junk Diver. I get a second Metalworker activation, which could be huge. Or it could not be, depends. It's kind of in the Soul Ring category, though. Of, yes, it makes a bunch more mana at that point, but... Duplicate, no. Would have Lightning Greaves ability, like, I could equip it, but then it won't have, it will have an equip ability, but it won't have the static that gives the benefit of being equipped, so... So technically it does that, but it doesn't do anything. Mindslaver is unnecessary for the most part. Similar to Jester's Mask. Like, sometimes it will be good, but a lot of the time it'll just be, like, a bit of overkill to be able to do. Like, I won't have the mana to activate both in the same turn that I cast a Mindslaver and activated the first Mindslaver, and now I have to come up with 4 more mana to sacrifice Refractor to also Mindslaver. Also, technically, I have to sack the Refractor first in that scenario. Would have Arcbound Ravager's ability to sacrifice artifacts to put counters on it, but it would not have the modular ability. So, that's a thing. You know what? I think we can lose Manscape Refractor. Do not think this is doing what I need it to. $139. Alright, I think I go for the board wipes first, try and figure out which ones I want to keep. Grab my O-Stone. These. No. Those. Cataclysmic Gear Hulk, yes. Hour of Revelation, yes. Ruinous Blast, yes. Sage, Tomic, Ozolith, no. No. Brilliant Restoration is kind of the opposite. This is Silex, yes. Horn, Hiri, Nisa, Gandalf, no. No. Ugin, not really. He kind of feels like it once he gets going, but... No. Earth Kingdom General, Haroon, none of these, right? Recruiter, 3 visits, Resonator, Perilous Vault, yes. Oops. Whisper Sentinel, Provisioner, Springheart, Mutation, Titania. Absence, not really. Surge Conductor, no. Crisis of Conscience, yes. No. Oh, and no. Okay. Fix my posture again, because I'm rapidly losing ground. Alright, so... Was I one away from the next page? Alright. Cataclysm, O-Stone, Gear Hulk, Hour, Ruinous, Silex, Bolt, and Crisis. I'm already thinking it's Urza's Ruinous Blast, because it also leaves behind all of our opponent's commanders, planeswalkers, that sort of thing, so... So while we get to keep a whole lot of extra stuff, they might randomly get to keep too much stuff. I think Urza's Ruinous Blast goes... So I'm looking at Cataclysm and Cataclysmic Gearhulk, and I'm thinking about, well, they get to keep whatever their best card is of, most of the permanent types in either case. So Cataclysm does more to make sure that they are basically out of the game because they will not have the mana sources necessary to continue fighting me. And I should be getting stuff back from, successfully metal bending onto it, while ideally having kept Toph as my creature chosen. Whereas the Gear Hulk is good because it's an artifact creature and therefore gets a lot of the benefits from this deck of being an artifact in addition to its other types, including that I won't have to sacrifice it unless they can kill Toph in response. And then technically I can still keep it, it's just I'm going to be losing other stuff instead to keep it as either the creature or the artifact. I think I keep Out of Revelation. I think that's one of the more straightforward ones. I definitely keep um, O Stone and Vault. Probably Crisis of Conscience, then. And I'm debating because we can probably lose at least one more of these because we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a lot of board wipes. I think we can go down to 5 comfortably. At that point, I think the Gear Hulk is slightly worse. Like, Cataclysm might just set up the win pretty easily. Whereas Gear Hulk, if Gear Hulk does not also set up the win, then it's probably not helping. Like, Cataclysm can set up the win, and if Cataclysm can't, neither can Gear Hulk itself. So, I think we get rid of these 3. Ruinous Blast. Crisis of Conscience. And Cataclysmic Gear Hulk. Alright, so that brings us down to 136. If we could cut just one more card, I could have cut 10 cards today at least. I would feel a tiny bit better. So let's see if there's one other thing that kind of stands out. Is there anything that I'm looking at and going, I probably don't need that, if I'm being honest? Nothing super obvious yet. I can see cutting Doubling Season as a 5-drop do-nothing enchantment in this deck. Yeah, at end of turn, I'm going to put 4 counters on my guy with Toph, but that's not that impressive. Yeah, I think we leave it for right now. But I can see cutting it before we're done. Still want to keep Canonist for right now. Slight temptation to cut the amulet since I've cut the other things that are like it. Come on, there's not like one card that kind of sticks out right now. Haywire Might, Loran. That's true. We have Loran also when I was cutting like artifact and enchantment hate. Do I need Loran that badly, honestly? I have all these other things that can kill artifacts and enchantments. Maybe I don't. It's nice that I can blink her to kill things. I'm wondering at that point if she wouldn't just be better off being replaced by, like an acidic slime or something. Where I can blow up multiple different permanent type, like where I get to attack on lands potentially if I'm going to be blinking this thing. I guess I keep Loran because I can blink her for right now. So having a repeatable artifact and enchantment destroyer. But then again, I have Aura Shards, which makes all of my things into a blinking Loran. But it does make Loran into double Loran, so that's interesting at least. Alright, I think we can cut her, and I think we call it there for right now. Alright, so we're down to 135, so we only need 75 more cuts and we'll be good to go. So, like another week and a half of this. So, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a good rest of your day.